a hero. He's a hero over there. Over here, he's a murderer.
He's a killer.
He killed our ancestors.
You came to
My
conquer.
ancestors. I know
You
my
don't
history.
know the history.
I tell you my history.
You don't know the history.
Look which race that's
You don't know the history.
That's a murderer right there.
You don't know the
That's
history.
a murderer. You will come over here and start something.
Indigenous people.
You know what? Trump would say. Trump would say something like that. You voted for Trump too?
No, he's against.
Huh? Who are the original Americans? Who are the original Americans of this country?
Go back.
Who are the original Americans of this country? You gonna jump over here in front of a camera? Answer the question, man. Who are the original Americans? Who are the original Americans?
Not you,
huh?
not
I'm
me.
the original American.
No, you're not.
I am, buddy. People that look like me. I'm an original American. He's a murderer, man.
He didn't
So
kill
you gonna
anybody.
celebrate him today?
It was other
He
people
killed
that
my ancestors. We are Aboriginal Americans, not Africans. That flag right there. Peace, y'all.
What is your name?
Aboriginal American.
Yes.
White people don't like to hear the truth because it's the truth. They look at it as another thing, but they stole the land, they killed my ancestors.
Anything that Christopher Columbus did that's worth celebrating on Columbus Day?
Not a damn thing. You celebrate him, and then he's facing the United States Capitol. For what? Look at this shit.
People don't know their history. It's an effort by anti-Western culturists to shame Hispanic immigrants, Catholics, and Italian Americans for whom Columbus is a hero and always will be a hero. People don't know their history, okay? They listen to this propaganda. If you know your history, Columbus himself did not kill a single Indian. Of course, other people came later and did that. Columbus was also accused of enslaving the natives, okay? The truth is that at the end of his second voyage, he did send back 532 prisoners of war who were natives who had killed the 40 men that Columbus left behind at the end of his first voyage, okay? Queen Isabella told him not to bring any more slaves back. At the end of his third voyage, he did not, and at the end of his fourth voyage, he did not. Queen Isabella died in 1504, Columbus died in 1506, and then in 1513, King Ferdinand authorized the enslavement of native peoples. So if you want to blame anybody, don't blame Columbus, blame King Ferdinand.
What do you think, why do you think Columbus Day is worth celebrating? What is the essence of Columbus Day?
Well, the essence is it began immigration from Europe and other parts of the world to this country. The creation of the United States was one of the greatest achievements, which was a result of Columbus's voyage.
By Jack D. Forbes. Introduction. Picture giant turtles from the Caribbean following the Gulf Stream to the coasts of Cornwall and other parts of Europe, diving occasionally to feed upon jellyfish as they make their epic journeys. Picture also ancient American mariners, perhaps from the Caribbean or the east coast of North America, also following the Gulf Stream in dugout boats, large and small, reaching places as diverse as Ireland, Holland, and Iberia. Visualize the surprise of Christopher Columbus when he actually met two such Americans, a man and a woman, at Galway, Ireland, some 15 years before making his famous voyage of 1492. The story of ancient Americans as seafarers, mariners, and navigators is, for me, a fascinating although often overlooked aspect of history. Evidence presented here will show that American Indians were builders of great boats, up to almost 100 feet in length in the Caribbean, and were outstanding students of the ocean's currents, storms, winds, and resources. The epic story of American seafaring includes maritime cultures of northeastern North America, fishing at sea for challenging prey such as swordfish, developing advanced toggling harpoons as early as 7,500 years ago, and evolving the Red Earth culture that may have spread as far as Europe. The story of ancient seafaring also includes the daring voyages of Eskimo Inuit groups from Greenland and Labrador using ingeniously designed kayaks and larger umiaks, voyages that took them along the coasts of Greenland, sometimes passing underneath huge ice mountains arching over the coastline and always facing terrible obstacles from storms and drifting ice. Unbelievably perhaps, intrepid Inuit kayakers show up in the waters of England, Scotland, and elsewhere, whether arriving directly from America or escaping from European whaling vessels. Second introduction. Along the coasts of South America, too, our story includes seafaring by nations such as the Caribs and Tupi-Guarani, with large dugouts of their own and with ocean rafts also being utilized. And our story would be incomplete without reference to the impressive freight rafts used along the Pacific coast and their counterparts in the Caribbean and Atlantic. Sails were often used both on rafts and in canoes, canoas, and pirogues, piraguas. Early sails seem to have been made of palm matting or other fibrous material on Lake Titicaca, fixed to a pole mast with tough cording made from plant fibers. Foreign visitors were incredibly impressed with American maritime ability and technology, whether in the waters of Greenland in the north, or south to the Caribbean and South America. In the latter areas, huge trees with durable wood made it possible to manufacture boats of incredible size and flexibility, boats whose finished width was far greater than that of the original tree, since gradual pressure carefully applied allowed the hull to be expanded outward. Similarly, planking was often used to increase the height of the vessels. The Spaniards counted up to almost 100 oarsmen in some vessels and remarked upon the protection given to the boats when beached by means of onshore shelters especially erected for that purpose. We can assume, I believe, that boat building of that type extended back many centuries or even millennia. In the far north also it would appear that watercraft were being manufactured several thousands of years ago. Thus there is a long time period available for voyages both within American waters as well as across the Atlantic. Our story also includes an examination of ancient migrations, theories of human origins, and evidence relating to the beginnings of human life in the American hemisphere. These fascinating topics must be dealt with in part because some scholars have argued for a great antiquity for Homo sapiens, modern humans, in America, and even that migrations took place to Europe from America tens of thousands of years ago. Since our topic is the American discovery of Europe, we are compelled to look at such theories, however unpopular they may be in current anthropological circles. In telling the story of American travel, one must touch also upon the activities of Europeans, since such activities often result in Native Americans arriving in Europe, usually as captives but sometimes as ambassadors, guests, entertainers, and curious visitors. In this connection, our story includes evidence relating to possible Norse activity in carrying at least some Americans to Europe up to 5 centuries before 1492. Possible ancient contacts from Europe are also examined, such as alleged Solutrean period spear point makers crossing the Atlantic in the Pleistocene, as well as later Roman, Irish, and other possible visitors from east to west. Another fascinating possibility resulting from contacts across the oceans has been the spread of diseases. In this context, the story must include the theory that early Norse encounters spread disease epidemics to the Dorset people of Labrador and Newfoundland. The apparently sudden disappearance of Dorset culture, the later decline and abandonment of great American cities such as Cahokia, Illinois, and similar events in Mesoamerica suggest that diseases may have been introduced by pre-1492 European or other contacts, or by Americans returning from across the oceans. It is difficult to explain the wholesale disappearance of cultures, cities, and peoples without considering the likelihood of diseases carried in both directions, as may have been true in the case of syphilis. The spread of plants from one region to another has also been considered possible evidence for early intercontinental contacts. The story of America's acquisition of many plants of possible Southeast Asian or African origin is beyond the scope of this work, but references will be made to the movement of flora and foods from America to Europe and the Mediterranean region. One of the great mysteries of the North Atlantic has been the question of what happened to the Norse colonies in Greenland. The European settlers seem to have disappeared between the 1400s and 1700s, and several theories have been developed to attempt an explanation, including climatic deterioration, cultural stagnation, and pirate raids. Our story will shed light upon the dramatic disappearance of the Norse, showing that some became Americanized, intermixing with Inuits and Beothuk people of Newfoundland, but with a number of the descendants ending their lives as slaves in Europe and even South America. After 1492, the majority of Americans arriving in Europe, the Canary Islands, and the Mediterranean came as captives. In spite of some records that shed light upon their existence in cities such as Sevilla and Valencia, we actually know very little of their fate. They must have had a decided genetic impact upon the populations of Iberia, and doubtless many were sold, by the Portuguese especially, to other parts of Europe. We know also that some reached North Africa, as well as West Africa, and Britain, but as of yet, little is known about possible Portuguese and Spanish sales of slaves to Germany and the Baltic. Taken together, the pre- and post-1492 periods offer the possibility that many Europeans have a trace of American ancestry, enough to complicate, perhaps, the work of geneticists seeking to trace human history.